Hello, and welcome to From a Basement in Tulsa. I'm Jason Ferguson. Thank you so much for downloading this episode with my new friend, Ian Moore, one of the coolest guys I've ever met. He's an incredible musician, a talented artist, just an all-around great person. I was really excited to get to meet him, and you'll hear that, I think, in my voice, coming up with questions the whole time, just a little bit freaking out to hang out with such a great person and just a great musician. Thank you guys again just for downloading, and thank you so much for such a cool year. 7 months we've been releasing episodes. 2014 has been great, and I want to say I hope you have a great 2015. I hope you have a fun New Year's Eve, a fun New Year, and just I hope everything you want happens in 2015. Keep sharing, keep having fun with these episodes. I hope you guys are enjoying them because I'm having such a blast just getting to hang out with all these cool people. Thank you again, and here's my new friend Ian Moore.
The windows down and the radio's playing. I really think we should stop ahead.
Hello, Ian. What's going on, man?
Hey, man.
I'm so glad to have you in Tulsa. How are you doing?
I am doing fabulous. Maybe even fantastic.
Those are two choice words that are pretty good, I think.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your tour, man. I think I've checked, and you started in Stillwater for this tour, correct?
Uh-huh.
And then you've just been everywhere. Have you been having a good time?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's amazing. I've been doing it for a long time, and there's a lot of different versions of me that go out there and do it. I have, some louder, more band-oriented versions. Right now, this is our acoustic Christmas tour. Super intense, really emotional. I get a lot of really great energy from the crowds. It's just a really organic experience. When you pick up an acoustic instrument, it dictates a different engagement between you and the audience.
I think the word is intimate they're using, and I like that. And you're here to play at one of the most intimate rooms I think we have in Tulsa,
Yep.
Especially for a smaller size. Canes is obviously intimate if you can squeeze a few thousand people in there. But also, have you been inside of Woody Guthrie Center?
I have. I've actually played there before. I did
cool.
did a thing with Scott Aycock last time through, and it was great. And I love the girls that run it. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing my wore it in honor of today. Guthrie Green shirt.
Guthrie Green.
We played Guthrie Green with the band last summer. And
such an awesome place, too.
Well, Woody Guthrie is such a huge, I can't imagine him not being a big influence on everybody.
Yeah.
But he has shifted and shaped my life so many times, including when I moved from Austin. And when I was thinking about where I was going to go, because I knew I needed to leave. I knew I needed to go and kind of journey and learn, go into the wilderness a bit. And I was thinking wilderness, Brooklyn, the Brooklyn wilderness. At that time, Brooklyn was really cheap and filled with art, neither of which are necessarily happening right now. And I thought I might go there. And I just happened to be reading a Woody Guthrie biography at that time. It was one of those perfect literature moments that coincided with a major life change. And Woody Guthrie spoke so succinctly about the importance of small communities and how they form truly the soul of America. And I was also realizing that information was going to speed up. And so I instead chose to go to the Northwest and live in the woods, largely based on Woody Guthrie.
That's great.
Yeah.
And the room itself there is kind of designed like a train car, which is where he spent a lot of his time. And I find that so beautiful. I've only played in that room one time, and it's just such a cool vibe. I'm excited you're experiencing it, and I'm so glad to have you here. I have a few questions. Let's play a song. Let's do that first.
Okay.
So the listeners some of them that might not know you, get a good song in. Let's play Birds of Prey. Do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, well, I love that song. It came about, a lot of El Sonido Nuevo is a collaboration between myself and Matt Harris, who plays in the Lossy Coils, which is, I guess, the current band version that I normally play in. And that song, we wanted to represent freedom. And it came down to a pretty sharp image of a actual eagle pecking away the bullshit, which is often the stuff that we're spending our time. And just that feeling when all of the stuff has subsided from on top of you, and you just feel like you're going to trudge forward. And Matt and I are running buddies, and we've had so many insane adventures. And many times we've been in those spaces together.
That sounds great. Well, let's hear Birds of Prey. And it's off of I'm going to try to pronounce this without my Oklahoma accent, but it's El Sonido Nuevo, which is, and the album art is really cool. It's kind of a painting of yourself holding up. You're looking buff.
Yeah, well, I worked out a lot before that picture, right, and became part Mexican.
Here's Birds of Prey.
Looking back through the evidence, could put it all on my circumstance. Oh, oh, oh. It's hard to number the damage done. No easy answers. I'm looking out on the new terrain. The windows down and the radio's playing. Oh, oh, oh. I really think we should stop ahead. And search for shelter. And every single song they say was loud and clear like birds of prey. Oh, looking back through the things I've missed, the creature comforts the miscreants. Oh, oh, oh. My words incisive, but my motives wrong. I've no pretensions. And every single song they say was loud and clear like birds of prey. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh. You don't realize, you don't know, as you cannot win, you don't show. Careful where your heart you should know. I cracked the code, now my head is clear. You're from the grifters and the racketeers. Oh, oh, oh. They simply cover the mess we've made. No need to settle. And every single song they say was loud and clear like birds of prey. Oh, oh, oh.
That's one of my favorite songs off that album. And I kind of cheated, and I listened to you on another podcast. I think it's called Icon Fetch. So I was kind of hearing you describe, but I also noticed before that a lot of these songs, I mean, they don't really sound the same. You kind of took a bunch of adventures on this album, and do you do that consistently? Is that just...
I'd say that's a general life philosophy.
Yeah. If I was picturing what the album made me picture, is just a dude having a great time making whatever kind of music he wanted. And where do you think you find a lot of your creative influence?
By opening my eyes.
Yep.
I mean, Lourdes and I were talking on the way over here when I found out she was from Michoacan, and we started talking about, towns in Mexico and food and life. And I mean, it's more for me about not taking, I'm so overwhelmed by all the vibrant colors of life that I have to take one at a time and focus. For instance, I brought this dobro today, which I didn't bring my slide. I just got this dobro a week and a half ago. And so I've been practicing in these different open tunings. And just to put this in perspective, people that are really good dobro players, it's pretty much all they ever do. Like Jerry Douglas is a dobro player. Or if you were to be, play the sitar, that's what you do. So when you're dabbling your toes, you have to dabble them deep enough in the water to actually gain some traction. But you can get lost in all these side streams. And I'm just so excited by everything. There's so many beautiful musics and art and literature and interesting concepts. And I feel like I could stop sleeping right now and double myself and still not even get 1/1000th of what I like to accomplish in my life done.
That's true. That's a bunch of stuff. And another question I've been thinking about is you can find different reasons for people to be creative, I guess is the word. Some people are creative just because they have to be, as a release. Some are creative just to make money, and some spiritual, or just to be entertaining. Where do you think you would find what drives you to be so creative and so well-knowing, I guess?
Well, I don't think anybody would say they didn't do it because they need to be, and I definitely feel like I have to do it. It's interesting, I'm a really open performer, and I feel like I haven't really seen anyone else perform. I tell stories sometimes where my wife is like, shut up, what are you talking about? Because I feel like it's important, as a performer to really strip it back to what you're really about. And so last night, for instance, on a Friday night in Fayetteville, a bunch of people, I started telling people about how I initially started songwriting, which is that my mom got cancer when I was a 7-year-old boy. And I'd been living in Mexico and India, and I had this brilliant life where everything was awesome. And then all of a sudden it stopped, and it was just shit and sadness and anger. And I did poorly. I went from being a really good student to doing poorly in school. I ended up in reform camp. I was totally going down the route, basically to probably prison,
Yeah.
All based on anger, not based on, doing a bunch of drugs or anything. And, I was playing the violin. I started playing the violin when I was 7. And I remember, I guess, maybe starting to make an association with the passion I could put into the instrument and it actually making the pain kind of go away. So my initial forays into music, I guess, were basically child therapy.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize that it was important, as I was telling you when I got here, my father was a Buddhist scholar. That's what he studied. And so I, was brought up with quite a bit of that philosophy. And, one of the tenet philosophies is that life is suffering. And when you say that to a lot of people that aren't used to the statement, it sounds, man, what a bummer. And it's like, well, no, think about it for a sec. Life is suffering. There is beauty and unbelievable joy. And so, if you can look at the suffering, you can see the joy. And I guess so I started wanting to channel my own stuff into songs and putting it out there to heal other people that were going through the same stuff. Since then, I don't just want to be a writer that, obviously as a writer you develop. I got into being a little bit more clever and trying different things. But fundamentally, I think that's why people come to my shows.
I think that's the most beautiful description of a reason to play music so far. I love that. I've very recently started reading into just whatever I can about just whatever kinds of religions. So I'm glad that you spoke a little bit about your dad being a Buddhist scholar, because I've just recently started reading a book called Be Loved Now. I don't know if you've read that, but it's a cool book. If anybody's listening, it's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
And
Well, you know what? Also, I'd say too, and I think it's a really important. My father's family was Jewish. My mother's family was Episcopalian. I went to Sunday school both at the Hebrew school and the Episcopalian school. And one of the things I just always tell people is, regardless of what your own belief system is, don't be scared to look around. It doesn't invade your faith. And if anyone tells you that, they're bullshitting you. I mean, seriously, it's a really sad thing, and it creates a lot of division amongst friends, amongst our country. I mean, feel all the negative energy. The negative energy comes from thinking that we're all so different, and we're not. We're not that different. And any of the higher spiritual thinkers, and I'm talking Christian thinkers, Jewish thinkers, Buddhist thinkers, Islamic thinkers, the people that really get it understand that. The people that are trying to create separatism are the people that have bad intentions in their heart. And it sucks that so many people fall for that bullshit.
I agree. I found anything I've read, I've found just tons of beauty built into it. And so that's cool that you're so knowledgeable on those things. How much do you think, obviously that's affected your music a little bit, quite a bit, but I have another question. I was thinking and hearing you talk on that other podcast. I'm sorry, I'm cheating by listen to another podcast and then dwelling on the questions. You spoke about your influences and what you taking music and just kind of stripping it down, evaluating it. After doing so much of that and then making your music, how does it make you feel, or how cool is it that now people are doing that with your music, taking that and just evaluating what you're doing and then inspiring themselves with that? Is that a cool feeling?
It's the greatest thing in the world. I mean, I feel, I still feel like an 18-year-old kid that's just, I feel so like I just don't know a lot yet. And it's funny when you're looking at these older musicians when you're a kid, they seem to be so there to this because you feel the end point and there's no end point. And I'm realizing this. I've been hanging out just for instance in Austin. Probably my single biggest guitar influence as a kid was a guy named Denny Freeman. Denny Freeman is, if you think about Austin kind of blues guitar players, Jimmy Vaughn was kind of like this super hip guy, really cool lexicon of the right thing to play, very almost like a Japanese Zen painter. That's Jimmy Vaughn, and that's why people love him. He's very economical. Stevie Vaughn was all heart and just much more forward, not as hip, and was never considered the dude in Austin. Yeah. Denny Freeman was the link between the two. Denny Freeman's the guy that got Stevie into the rhythmic, more funky, that combined with the Hendrix thing. And Denny is an amazing guitar player. So when I was a kid, I used to study his playing, like as much as any guitar player. I mean, there was the few guys I did. So I saw him the other night playing at the Continental Gallery in Austin. And there's this organ jazz trio. I love organ jazz, one of my favorite types of music. And I was watching Denny play and I was like, my God, he's become a real jazz guitar player. When he was young, he was a blues guitar player with a little hint of jazz. And he is, as a man in his late 60s, has completely evolved as a player in ways that I have not as a much younger man. And I was like, I need to double my effort. I need to work harder. These cats are like really digging in, man. The generation before, it's really inspiring to see how much growth there is,
That's cool. It's cool to see like what you initially thought was the end point. Just keep going. That's
no end point, man.
Beautiful picture you painted
Said
there.
the dude.
Excellent. Well, let's go into another song if you don't mind.
Sure.
I really like the Levees.
Levees.
Can you tell me about that song?
Yeah, I love that song too, and not a lot of people reacted to it when we put the record out. But that was written in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, and I was thinking about, well, number one, I had a lot of friends that were personally affected by it, and then I was thinking about the nature of how our sympathy rides on the wave of commerce, which is that news is driven by interest, and interest is driven by commercials. And so everybody was focused on Katrina for about 3 weeks or whatever, and then it's just another tragedy that's in the back pages. They get front page coverage, and that's why the Red Cross comes in and everybody goes, come on, you got to donate now, because they know if they don't get that money to come in right then, those people are screwed. And, I just kind of wanted to address the way we react to tragedy through media, which is very superficially.
Absolutely.
And people's lives are altered, and some people die. People were displaced. I mean, the Katrina thing in the South, in this general area, was one of the most significant cultural events of the last 20 or 30 years, because New Orleans basically stopped being a city, and everybody went to Houston, Dallas, Austin, probably here. All the crime rates raised everywhere because there was just a ton of people that had no money, and they were like I mean, it was a huge thing.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talked about it.
Well, let's hear a song about it then.
When we build the levees back, let's hope they catalog their crimes. It's times like these we'd like to think that we would rise. And we bathe ourselves in luxuries, but never count the cost. Is it the season or the scenery we lack? And these days go past, just a calendar of past regrets. I pull the marrow from the flesh that tears so easily. And these days go by, but most days we're barely just getting by. Maybe we will be different today. The cover falls on dusty dreams we've swept aside. We're more alive when we can taste our finer flaws. From the magazines they preach a new morality, both gossamer and gaudy. It's the spirit that they lack. And these days go past, just a calendar of past regrets. I pull the marrow from the flesh, it tears so easily. And these days go by, but most days we're barely just getting by. Maybe we will be different. Maybe we will be different today. Today. And these days go past, just a calendar of past regrets. I pull the marrow from the flesh, it tears so easily. And these days go by, but most days we're barely just getting by. Maybe we will be different. Maybe we will be different. Maybe we will be different today.
Yeah, I guess we're on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah, let's be on.
okay, we're on. I love that song.
Yeah, and that's a cool one. And I'm realizing now, which is funny and very time appropriate, because as soon as we finish playing tonight, we're going to go. My friend works on the Black Keys crew, so we're going to go over to that show, and they have Richard Swift playing bass, and that song was really influenced by Richard Swift, who's this brilliant kind of pop songwriter. I hear him, and I also hear the Posies, who are really good friends of mine, and Matt, my bass player, plays in their band. So I hear those just in the chord changes and the way
Yeah.
the song evolves.
That's cool. I mean, I hope you have a great time meeting Richard Swift. That's incredible.
I hope to meet him. I mean, I'm going to be there. We'll see. I'm assuming, I'd like to meet him. He's definitely someone I've never met that we have a billion mutual friends.
It's funny how that works. I have more questions for you that I've been
Please.
thinking about.
Yeah.
I've seen your Wikipedia page is what it is. It's very impressive. And my question is, having been obviously now a kind of front man, singer man, guitar man, as country
Guitar
singers would
man.
say, guitar man.
I like
player.
it.
Can you paint a picture of how different it is being the front man touring and then also like a secondary front man?
Well, I only have a little bit of experience as a sideman, and I'm glad I did that. I played a little bit with Rocky Erickson, which was, that's like playing with your dad.
Yeah.
Because Rocky's real tied into my family and my early life. So that wasn't really like a sideman. I almost felt like a frontman because Rocky's so fragile, and so he really keys in on the guitar player. and he and I kind of would psychically communicate while we were on stage. It was really heavy. So that was amazing. I loved it. I loved playing with Rocky. And when I was young, playing with Joe Ely, similarly, they were just amazing people. When I took the Mraz gig, which I did maybe 3 years ago, that was a completely different gig. I took it through my friend Carlos Sosa, who's the musical director at the time. And that was, well, I didn't know anything about Jason before I got in the band. And it was a very interesting gig because Jason's super cool, but we never talked. And I was out with him for months. I mean, we literally, he knew, I mean, unless he did some back research, he knew nothing about me. Didn't know what I believed in or anything. And it was an interesting relationship. And I was like, oh, this is kind of a trip to be in a band where you're part of this thing. And it wasn't bad. I mean, he was a really cool guy. I don't have anything negative to say. I just had never had an experience like that. And so consequently, I just kind of felt like my role in that case was really to do my best to set him up to do his thing, which is he's really good at.
That's cool. Well, then let's talk about who you're playing with now. I wrote it down. Right.
Lossy Coils.
The Lossy Coils.
Well, actually, that I will be doing that to some degree in March, although it's going to evolve into a different thing. This tour right now is an acoustic tour, so it's me and a guy named Cullen Fuchs. And Cullen's a kid that I met at a time when I'd completely just stripped away from my band. I'd always had a band.
Yeah.
I'd always been a rock and roll, bluesy, kind of soul psychedelic. That was my trip. Stripped it away, started just playing solo acoustic guitar. It was a really interesting time. A lot of people didn't like it at first. Which Dustin, if you're friends, because I remember Dustin and I really bonded around that time because he really was like, I remember him being a real vote of confidence and saying, you're doing something cool. Because there weren't many votes of confidence at that point. But what was really amazing about it is when you strip everything back.
Let's hold. Actually, Dustin, we miss you. And he said to me, he said, make that gentleman play acoustic guitar for you because it will change your life. That's how much the vote of confidence was.
That's a very, very, thank you.
Miss you, Dustin. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, and so the neat thing was that when I stripped everything away, things came around me. And one of those things was this kid who was going to school in Amarillo from a very conservative background that knew nothing, and he knew a ton about classical music, but knew nothing about contemporary culture, wanted to play with me, sent me a trumpet demo tape, and it was terrible. But Chris Dye and I, the guy that was touring with me at the time, said we should just let him sit in with us next time, just because we just had this attitude like anybody, it's kind of cool, play with us. So he gets up, and he was pretty good. I mean, really green. And anyhow, so this kid kind of toured with me on and off, and I basically, turned him on to all the music I was into, these books, try this out like he'd never done yoga before. Now he's, you know what I mean? Just all, and it was really interesting. So now he's become his own character, Cullen, and who many people in Austin know him. And he's developed into this beautiful musician, very, very trippy. As a musician, I call him a watercolor painter. If you want him to be a pencil sketch guy like the Coils, that's not him. But if you give him a canvas where there's not the rhythms a little looser, and he can be a bit more abstract, he's brilliant. So that's what we do. It's mainly he and I. He plays vibraphone and trumpet, play acoustic guitar and kick drum and sing. And then I have Greg, who's from the Lossy Coils, is out with us, so we'll do a couple of tunes like that as well.
That's cool. And you find it easy to create with these? That's what I was getting into. Like, what kind of personalities do you bring around you that help you be more creative? And I think you already answered that question before.
Well, Cullen and I have really developed a sound, and I honestly feel like, not that it's groundbreaking necessarily, but doesn't sound like anybody else. I know that much. Our thing is definitely unique. The Lossy Coils, are not quite as overtly unique, but I feel like I've also, exploring subtlety. Some things like, are more obviously like, oh my God, it's like 3 Japanese girls in miniskirts playing ukulele. That's so trippy. And then there's other stuff where maybe it doesn't overtly go, oh wow, but it still has merit. So with the Coils and like with El Sonido, for instance, it's definitely exploring some realms of kind of power pop and psych pop and, kind of 70s radio rock. But I find that to be a very fertile garden and just as interesting as Hindustani music or cumbia or any of that other stuff,
Yeah, I completely got lost and forgot the next question. That's how cool that is. I love seeing how creative and just free you are, and just how much fun you seem to be having playing this music. That's some of my favorite things.
Yeah, well,
Favorite things to see.
Talent and practice. I mean, if you have a decent amount of talent and you bust your ass practicing, and then you open your heart when you play on stage, it's your best recipe for success.
That's great. I heard a gentleman saying, I wish I remembered his name, and I think he's a quantum physicist or something crazy. But one of my favorite things he said was he believes that the artist needs to sit and be quiet to your mind kind of goes somewhere else where you can bring back creativity.
Yep. And
that's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm actually sad that I don't have your newest albums. Tell us how to get those.
Well, and this is what I was explaining. Music is changing so much, so we have to change our thought in parallel with it. And I've been really inspired by my son, who's 15, who's a DJ and really into trap step and all the different stuff he's into. And I'm not so into necessarily the music. To me, it's not totally my thing, but I like the concept and the thought behind it. And I love trying to get in the headspace of how each generation thinks about art. And one of the things that's been really inspiring is that things don't need to be so static. Because of digital culture, because of the way we consume things, we can change the way we put things out. So I have a number of different ways I put stuff out. I put out a little EP, and I did make some hard copies, but the idea with that was to sell them at shows. This was last Christmas tour. And encourage people to be part of the experience as opposed to staying at home and just, sitting on the internet going, which is fine.
Especially if you're listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, yes, if you're listening, but I think it's really great. I just think that I do believe in the power of community. And I think one thing we do need to kind of qualify as we kind of hurdle into this digital age that does tend to isolate is make sure we go out of our way to create communities, because community is where humanity exists. And so I wanted people to come to the shows. And so that's what I did. And so Airy was the thing we put out. And I made that very folky. I made it where it was an example of kind of what we sounded like live, which I don't normally do. I'm normally like, I hear a 18-piece marching band on this song. That's how I normally produce.
Yeah.
And this one I wanted, so you hear Cullen, you hear me. I had my friend Barb playing cello, which I sometimes have. And then his vocal, my vocal, and that's it. So that was Airy. And then this year, I did a Christmas thing. I didn't even really give it a name, just Christmas 2014. And I put 3 songs out and was going to put 5 songs, but they wouldn't. I did 2 covers.
Oh.
And you couldn't put covers out for licensing purposes. So then I posted those on my website. So if you go to the kind of buy section where all my records are, Christmas 2014. So Bobby Bear covers Streets of Baltimore, one of the most fucking amazing songs ever. And then Color of the Blues, which is one of our, Cullen and I have had a couple of drinks and we want to sing country songs.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I love George Jones. I love his voice when he was young. So yeah, so those came out. And then I have a soul record I made last December. I have a rock record I made up in Toronto with Matt and this Canadian producer. Big kind of guitar rock thing in January. Both of those are theoretically coming out, and then I've just started working on this. I love the way they have these one-word names. So funk record. None of them are exclusively one or the other, but they're just these different projects, and I've just started that. So I have a wealth of music, and how and when it comes out is up to the whoever's figuring all that stuff out.
Whoever's loading it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really enjoy the variety you're putting out. And I think I've said it already. I really enjoy how much just fun and love you seem to be putting into your music. So I'm looking forward to getting the rest of those. That's really cool.
Well, man, I mean, what else, why else? I mean, we listen to music because it's good, but, you hear passion, right? Isn't that what turns you on?
You can feel it.
Yeah. And then you see, especially, I've really been thinking about it because I'm 46 years old. I've been playing music for a long time. And I feel like I definitely feel like my songwriting's gone quite a bit better since I was young. When I was really young, my songwriting, I got lucky a couple of times, but it was really limited. And maybe people would say that's what made it good. I feel like I've grown a lot. And I feel like I have a lot of things where I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And I don't, and then I look at a lot of people's careers and I go, well, God, most people put out their good records and they're, 20s in pop culture. And I've been trying to really think about that. Why is it that most people start to suck as they get older? And I think, I mean, it's a pretty holy theory, but holy is in full of holes. I think it's because they get bitter, and I think it's because they stop doing what they like, because older fans tend to get more conservative. And if you cave in to that natural tendency, kind of physiological and mental tendency to kind of crave the past and get sentimental, that's dangerous. So I fight that.
That's great. Listeners can't see my face. Like, yeah. I try to be incredibly supportive, I guess, in my thought process of what pop music or what popular music is now. How do you feel at being so across the board, just all kinds of music you're playing? How do you feel about music that seems to be only made to be popular? I mean, I think it has its place and it's appreciated by some, but
sure. Well, okay. I mean, I have a lot of feelings, and we could do the whole podcast about that one statement. So I'll try to be somewhat concise. I know I'm not the shortest talker.
No, you have time.
Well, in my personal thing, I isolate myself from that because I am a sponge, and if I listen to too much of that stuff, I'd reflect it. I don't want it in my psyche, so I try to keep it out. I don't want to listen to Katy Perry and stuff. That said, I was working on some songs last week. I was out in the country. I went out to this country home that a friend of mine had because if I'm in Austin, I can't get anything done. And I was working on these songs, and so a friend of mine, Karen, came out. She just adopted a baby, so I wanted to meet her baby. And then her older daughter, who is 10, Anna, came out as well. And she was a really cool girl. Karen's a cool chick, so her daughter was super cool. And we started talking, and she's like really into music. And I was like, well, what are you into? She's like, Taylor Swift. And then she just started singing me Taylor Swift song after Taylor Swift song. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. This is why, there are people like this. And there's a real responsibility, and I guess she's reaching, so Taylor Swift is helping this little girl who will probably obviously outgrow Taylor Swift, because Taylor Swift is definitely, kind of a fast food with some merit. Like maybe she's McDonald's in a salad or something. Yeah. But it's serving a really important purpose, which is, giving her the love of music, a message that she likes. Like she sang the song Mean Girls to me. And it really meant something to her, and I got it. And so that's the purpose of pop music. And, you just hope that, because I know many people that are involved in that. I have people that play with some of those bands because they make lots of money, and people that write some of those songs. And, I know that they all try, to put a little bit of something good in them.
Sustenance. Yeah,
a little bit of a message for the kids, So I don't have any negative feelings about it. I don't personally bring it close to my brain, but, it serves its purpose.
I think that's kind of my thought. And I kind of, anything that's helping somebody in any way, I think is purposeful and beautiful.
Yeah, and people get what they need. Not everybody's going to be listening to the most heady music in the world when they're depressed. Sometimes you want to listen to Lady Gaga, and there's something about the way she lives that makes you not take your life and makes you continue on. It doesn't matter where you get it, man, as long as, it's there.
Yeah, I agree. Let's listen to your cover of Lady Gaga mixed with Taylor Swift.
Cool.
And
right?
We got a couple more songs. So let's play Hillary's Step. Did I write that down right?
Yep.
Hillary's Step. I really enjoy that song too. Let's hear it.
The wind was still. More stars than you ever dreamed. The Milky Way was on fire. The air's much thinner here. And I could just shut off my mind and climb the incandescent stairs. Follow the trail of life. Sometimes it feels alright to let things slip away instead of waiting on a miracle. the sky. You know just why you're here. You could see for hundreds of miles. Sometimes it feels alright to let things slip away instead of waiting on a miracle. Instead of waiting on a miracle, but sometimes it feels alright to let things slip away instead of waiting on a miracle. Instead of waiting on a miracle. Sometimes it feels alright to let things slip away instead of waiting on a miracle. Instead of waiting on a miracle, but sometimes when it feels alright to let things slip away instead of waiting on a miracle. Instead of waiting on a miracle. Not waiting on a miracle. Not waiting on a miracle.
That song, Ian, it moves you. I guess the song kind of starts a little bit slow with just stuff in the background, and all of a sudden it picks you up and launches you. Can you tell me the story of that beautiful song you have?
Yeah, like everything else. I mean, you know, I should have a caveat, just carte blanche, apology at the start whenever I start talking.
No.
But there's such a beautiful story behind that. I was watching a PBS story on the tragedies on Everest, Mount Everest. There was actually been a lot, but these are the ones that were a number of years back. And there's the story of this one guy, Beck Weathers, who just hit me like a hammer. I mean, it just knocked me. And this guy just comes on. He's talking about being depressed his whole life and how he had this amazing family and he had this great job and he had boats and cars and he just could not, take gratitude into his heart. He was really, really lost and sad. And so he goes over to climb Mount Everest. It's kind of like the way he says it, and I still haven't met him, but just from what I gathered, it's kind of like a last ditch effort. Like maybe his wife was going to leave him, because the guy's clinically depressed. And all this stuff happens and he basically is about to die. And then he snaps and he comes back and as he talks about it, you see him and he's missing part of his nose and his fingers. And so the story's brilliant. It's a beautiful, beautiful story about hope and carrying on. So that's part of it. But then the other part that's amazing, the reason it's called the Hillary Step is an actual physical place on Mount Everest where there's a series of ladders. And every expedition that summits Everest gets stuck at the ladders, and that's where people die. They don't die at the ladders. They die because they wait too long. And then when they summit, you have to get down before the weather comes in. And to me, it is a complete analogy to what it is to try to do something great. Whenever you really push yourself and you get into rarefied air, much like the thin air up high in the mountains, every little minute thing that you bring into it makes the difference. And you're pushing yourself, and you watch like a great athlete like Michael Jordan, or you watch like Derek Trucks play the slide guitar, or you watch somebody and you go, what's the difference between me and him? And it's that way that they approach that final little thing at the very end of their consciousness. And it's that thing, it's the visualization, and that is the Hillary Step. you know.
That's beautiful. That's all I have to say. That's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
I'm incredible. I love every story you've told and like reason you play and what songs you play. That's just really cool to me. I'm so glad you decided to stop by the studio while you're here in Tulsa on this cool tour. Do you have anything to say to people that already do know you, maybe the fans, what to look forward to as we come up into the new year?
Well, like I said, I've got a lot of new records coming out. I'm really curious to see. I'm always interested. I've given up on trying to think how people are going to receive things. I do know that I have less negativity around me. For a long time, there was a lot of dissatisfaction with how quickly I change. But I think people have come to accept that, and for the most part like it. And people that didn't like it have moved on to whatever they needed. So I'm really excited for these records to come out. The soul record's all covers, and it's just really cool stuff I love, like Hercules by Aaron Neville and Fool for You by Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions. A lot of soul stuff that I've loved my whole life. And then the stuff I'm working on right now, this funk stuff, is really probably one of the most extreme things I've ever attempted. It's a really, well, we'll see what it ends up sounding like, but it feels like a pretty big departure for me. I feel like really, really influenced by Mike Elizondo and some of the Dr. Dre beats, and I'm writing a lot about violence and the inner nature of man, stuff that I haven't ever really written about before. So it's real intense, and so I'm excited about that. I just, and then this rock record's, I just want to get out and play. I love playing with my guys. I have a cool group of players, and I'm just psyched. We'll be doing some shows at South by with the band, and
That seems plenty of things to be excited about for both you and your fans and myself.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see you again here in Tulsa. Let's try. This will be a first for me. I just got these new microphones.
Uh-huh.
Are you into trying to making a song
Sure,
into the
man.
microphones with the guitar?
Yeah. Make
awesome.
the song into the mic.
Well, we'll get that set up. While we do, listeners, we're going to time travel to Ian playing a song. I want to say thank you so much again for downloading. Please subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you're listening. Thank you guys so much, and please come back. Ian, thank you again, man. And let me tell you a story about what happened. I was recording him playing a song, and I was kind of nervous, as you've just heard this whole episode. And I had set up two microphones, one for him to sing into, and one for him to play the guitar into. But we ended up only using one, so I just kind of pushed one out of the way. And then when I started recording, I turned on the wrong one. So it sounds a little bit silly, but it sounds fine. It's just kind of funny to me that I did that. I won't let that happen again. I keep laughing about it. But the song sounds amazing. Ian is incredible. Thank you again for listening. Have a great year, and I'll see you soon. Here's Ian Moore.
This is the first tune on Airy. I wrote this. One of my mentors, actually a mentor couple, Susanna and Guy Clark. Guy Clark's a very famous Texas songwriter, a big influence on me when I was playing with Joe Ely. So Susanna passed away just recently. Guy Clark, I wrote this as a song between the two of them, and it's actually my first boy-girl duet, so there's a duet the whole song, which I wish was here to do.
Yeah.
And I love this one. It just snuck up on me, and it's so simple, but kind of a song about love.
If we're two of a kind, won't you take the envy away from your eyes? Well, I don't understand why we always take sides on these battle lines. Well, I opened the door and I let in the breeze, and it spoke to me still of the heart and its cost. And I tried to appeal, my intentions were clean, but as I was speaking I knew I'd lost. For the moments are fleeting when the smiles cast your way, and the air comes alive with the sounds of the day. And I don't understand why we always take sides on these battles.
So let me ride if you're heading back east. I got family to give me a room and a bed, and I got people that see me in a favorable light, look past my transgressions and wish me success. It's the foolish among us who thinks he's immune to life's bloody pageant, so I tried to abide to a code that I'd written with my own dark designs on these battle lines. So if we're two of a kind, would you try to forgive me? Don't think me unkind. Well, I don't understand why we always take sides on these battles.